Well, it's time to get one of our question and answer sessions underway here at our virtual gala, and I've got General Manager Danny Martin with me. Good morning, Danny.
Good morning, Richard. How are you?
I'm very well, and life in lockdown going okay for you as well?
Yes. Very different, but okay. Yeah.
And I guess it must be a unique experience for you in all your years of managing the RH&DR to have a virtual gala day.
Yes. Don't think I'd ever thought in any of my plans or even my dreams or worst fears that we'd have a virtual gala. But as always, we adapt. But yeah, very, very strange.
And I guess it's not a normal gala, but we're still going to showcase everything we have to offer. And you've seen how long have you actually managed the railway, by the way?
Managed the railway since the 1st of January 2000, Millennium Day. So that's over 20 years now.
Indeed. So you must have seen a lot of changes during that time.
Yes, yeah, we've seen loads of things change, but I suppose underlying it, we've also seen, if you came to the railway 20 years on, you'd recognise the key parts of it. But we've seen engines improved over that time. We've lots of new facilities, lots of new ventures, seen Dungeness rebuilt. So, yeah, huge amount of change, but change that everybody would see as recognisably small, really, if you're a visitor from, like I've been for many, many years.
And I guess technology has come to the railway as well over that time, but you've got to try and make that balance between what people are coming for in that sort of historical sense and also underpinning everything we do with the modern technology as well.
Yeah, I mean, the cleverness about what everyone's done with technology on our railway is that they've almost kept it hidden. So it works behind the scenes. It does lots of things for our safety, for how we account for things, how we work things through, but without being right stuck in people's faces. And so I think brilliantly clever what's gone on with that.
And in terms of the gala itself, on a regular gala day, I guess there's an awful lot of preparation that goes into that, what with visiting locos as well to consider. How long before a gala day would you normally start preparing?
Well, I think the first ideas really are that we set almost 6 months before the date. I know it's usually very typically the same date, but you look around to see what other people are doing and what's going on in the railway world, because you want to avoid too many clashes. Further downstream, we get to the year of the gala and we start to think, well, who and should we talk to about being able to obtain visiting engines, get permission to use them? Will they be suitable for what we want to do? Often left fairly late to make sure that availability is right. And then as we move nearer to the actual weekend itself, sort of eight to 9 weeks out, we start to write the detailed timetable, already having had some quite good thoughts about what will be available. But we know things will change as we approach the day. And we have that in mind too. And then we start to sort out fares and options and ticketing and all those things that matter. And then we just look forward to what will change as late in the day so that we have to react. And that's all part of the fun. And that's what railways are about.
And yes, I suppose that's the biggest thing on Gala Day, isn't it? Is actually you can have all of the plans, but as the day progresses, things can develop.
They always do, yes. I think most people would say if everything went exactly to plan, much as I'd be very happy, that it just wouldn't be Gala Day. What you want, of course, is those changes to the plan to be something that's safe and people comfortable with and don't spoil people's day. But yeah, the variety and the ad hocness of life is what makes it happen. And I don't think that's wrong. I think that's all about having some railway operations at their best.
And I guess one of the exciting elements, and you've already mentioned it, is the visiting locos that we can have coming to join us. And over the years, you've had lots of different ones.
Oh, we've had a huge array. In fact, one of our volunteers the other day was doing some research, and he found that we're into the way over 20, and that's amazing. Obviously, we tend to go for some of our bigger railway friends from Ravenglass, from Bure Valley, from Kirklees, just to name but a few, whose engines can do work the similar nature to our own, and so there's options there to keep trains running at fairly high speeds that we're used to, and pull big trains. So we major on those in many ways, but we've just had a great variety over the years, and always looking for something different that will make it work.
And have you got a favourite Gala moment to share with us?
I'm not sure I've got a favourite Gala moment of all days. I think probably the multiple-headed trains of the years, difficult not to see those and realise the day is almost over, things are safely coming to an end, and just think, relax, and now let's go and look at that. And I must say, what I usually do, without too many people noticing, I just drive off in the car by then to a crossing, just sit on my own, and it always makes me, well, mixture, smile or just a slight tear sometimes, just to see the amazingness of it. So, and think what everyone's done to make that day happen. So they're probably those, but just getting it all back at the end of the day with everyone enjoying themselves and everything back safely occurs every year and is good every year.
Very, very special days, special memories there, Danny. Slightly away from Gala, if I may, we've had a lot of time to think in recent weeks, and one of the questions that's come up, and there's been debate about it on social media and online, is the use of coal at steam railways. And obviously we do use coal, but it's also about the availability of coal in the UK in time to come. And is that something that concerns you?
Certainly, very, very much. And I think if we weren't in the current circumstances, we'd all be talking about it much more. And it's important that we don't stop talking about it. We're in a situation now where within probably less than several years, so, I don't know, 2 to 5, the availability, and this might be made worse by the current situation, we may find that there is very little steam coal of quality available to have in the UK, not because it's not in the ground, but just because we're not being allowed to mine it, or others aren't being allowed to mine it for us. Now, that's pretty serious, and it's not just a question of, oh, let's go somewhere else and buy it, and it might be not quite as good, it might be more expensive. It's going to increasingly just not be available. So therefore, there's a lot of work being done by the Heritage Railway Association, which all of our railways support, to say, hang on, is this the best way forward to get coal? And we're very much part of that. We very much support that initiative. We've been talking to our MPs and other influential people, because once we're through this present situation, that one's going to come upon us very, very quickly.
So certainly one to monitor, I think, as you say, as we go through the next few weeks and months.
Yeah, very much so. And in the medium term, we will have to change some of the things we do probably to adapt to that, while wanting to keep the essence of being a steam railway, and that's what it's all about. But lots of thoughts about that, and also we're very mindful of how we approach our environmental duties right now, because steam engines have got some inherent issues about smoke and things, which we're very careful to keep down. But we've got to look at the whole picture and make sure our operation is one that is environmentally as good as it can be.
Well, you mentioned adapting there, and we can't leave this conversation without talking about our current circumstances. And I guess in many ways that's why we're here on our virtual gala. And obviously, temporary closing of the railway on the 21st of March must have been a very difficult decision for you.
Yes. I think the word difficult is perhaps not quite where it is. It was difficult to have to finally accept it. I think it was clear that we were going to need to join with everyone in the country and do the right thing. And I guess the one thing I was very proud of my team was that just before we got to the critical point, we were just ahead of that curve that said, let's manage our closure so that things are put away safely, are protected. Many things that I wouldn't have even thought about, people went off and did. And that really was not difficult, but was pleasing to see in a most difficult time.
And how are the team holding up?
They're really, really working hard to make sure that we keep our presence out there. I mean, things like today are really, really important to keep our customers, our shareholders, our supporters and all of the staff, paid or volunteer, part of what's going on. I think it would be true to say, as I talk to individuals, and I try to talk to individuals as much as I talk to groups virtually, most people, like myself, are finding it very difficult to adapt to such a different working life, but also very conscious that in order to protect everybody's family, and through that the NHS, that if we weren't to be that unselfish, there is just no way this thing will progress to the ultimate. But I think most people are finding it fairly tough, but at the level that we're all dealing with it, which is that we are well, and that's the biggest thing.
And certainly the most positive thing to take away. But obviously we're seeing some thoughts around the easing of restrictions over time, and all of that has got no real timetable to it, but it does give the chance to plan ahead. And can you give us some insight into how you see things developing over the next few months?
I think there'll be a couple of phases for us. Still a lot of thinking and planning and flexibility in those plans. We need to gradually get back out and just check the condition of all the assets we have, be they in the locomotive shed, the carriages, and the tracks. And so in the next month or so, I guess is my feeling, we'll be doing some of that very quietly, very safely, with the appropriate distancing, but just to make sure that we can think, what do we do next and in what proportion? We're testing the reaction of our customers, but we all know that it's very different to what you're asked today to what you will actually do on the day, and we've got to try and imagine that. We're thinking of ways of adapting our coaching stock a little bit to make some more protection space within, because it really wouldn't be a very economic operation to have one person in each coach, as I'm sure everyone can work out. And just how much other support facilities can we provide around the journey that people might want to make, because we are outside, and that's a positive to the way our operation is. So that whole array going on over the next 4 to 6 to 8 weeks. I think we'll be clear on exact dates, as you said earlier, in that period of time, and that will enable us to ramp up a more detailed plan, perhaps in a month or so.
And what are you looking forward to personally about reopening? What's the thing you're looking forward to most?
Well, I'm not a great one for uncertainty. So actually knowing that a train's going to depart at a particular time, which is what I've looked forward to my whole railway career. They haven't always left on time, but I'd like to look forward to that. Obviously, I wouldn't be part of the Romney family if I didn't look forward to seeing an engine turning a wheel with steam powering it. That's why we're about it. And to see some happy faces, even if they've got the odd mask or something on, but to see people actually enjoying what we have provided safely. That's the biggest fillip of all, when you see that, you see people coming off the train. So all of those things, and of course to be able to see face to face, but at a distance, my colleagues. We've worked with those people for many, many years, and not to be able to see them regularly, that's upsetting too.
Indeed. Well, let's hope things develop in a positive way in the coming weeks and months. I've got one last question for you, Danny. It's something I'll ask everybody as we go through the day, but what is your favourite day on the railway?
Well, my favourite day actually is Christmas Eve, when I travel on the last train of the Christmas services with my family, as many of them as can make it, including the little ones, to see Father Christmas. Because not only is that a great event in itself, of course, and the children are just loving what's going on, but to see at the end of a really busy year, all those trains moving around. And by then we've usually got it spot on time. Most years it comes back exactly spot on time. It makes me feel really good to be part of that. So that's my own personal one. I love all the days of the year when we're busy and when we're not so busy and things are being done, but that's the secret little special one for me and mine.
Excellent. Thank you, Danny. And thank you for joining us for this Q&A. I know you'll be around on Facebook to answer some more questions. If anybody wants to ask them, we'll post them on Facebook and we'll reply to them during the morning. So thank you for your time, Danny.
Thanks very much.
Okay, we've got more coming up at the top of the hour, and there are plenty of opportunities for you to post your videos and photos on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram, and we look forward to seeing those as the day progresses. You can purchase your e-guide on our online shop, so go across to that now and pick one of those up, and you can see the timetable for the day ahead. Thanks, Danny, for joining us, and we'll be back with more later.